Now it's my pleasure to introduce Raquel Chang-Rodriguez, the editor of Entre la espada y la pluma, and she'll tell you more about the book.
Good evening to everyone. My thanks to all of you for being here this evening and for your interest in celebrating the publication of Entre la espada y la pluma, the collection of essays of the fall 2009 symposium marking the 4th centenary of the publication in Lisbon of Royal Commentaries, a masterpiece of Peruvian and Hispanic literature written by Inca Garcilaso de la Vega. Thanks to the effort of these individuals and institutions and the contribution of the authors, one of them is here with us, we come together to mark the publication of Entre la espada y la pluma, el Inca Garcilaso de la Vega y sus comentarios reales. Let us review together some aspects of Garcilaso's masterpiece. The first part of Comentarios Reales offers a history of Inca civilization, while the second part, also known as General History of Peru, summarizes events of the conquest, the civil wars among the conquistadors, and the imposition of colonial rule in Peru. In the prologue of the second part, Garcilaso explains that he writes, forzado del amor natural de la patria, forced by natural love for my native land. And he also speaks directly to the Indians, mestizos, and criollos of the kingdoms and provinces of Peru, his compatriots. In both parts, Garcilaso emphasizes his Inca and Spanish lineages, and this is why we selected to begin the program with the Anampacha, to remember that Garcilaso's first language was Quechua. His knowledge of Quechua, his access to privileged sources, and the fact that he was an eyewitness to some of the events he narrates. In this manner, the chronicler gives himself the authority to correct errors and misinterpretations made by European historians who wrote about America. It is worth noting that when writing his chronicles, Inca Garcilaso had in mind a specific model. He was interested in presenting the heroic conception of history received from two distinct sources. Number one, the classical text that informed his readings, and the Inca oral tradition of preserving deeds and events through several means. In accordance with León Hebreo's perception of Neoplatonic philosophy, the author attempted to present events that would reconcile worlds, cultures, and deeds frequently in collision. A constant of Garcilaso's writing is his insistence on his double lineage, evident in his coat of arms on the cover of the book. The shield, found inside the first edition of Royal Commentaries, emphasizes the dual heritage, Inca and Spanish, of the author. It also harks back to a remote ancestor, Garci Pérez de Vargas, that reconquests Seville from the power of the Arabs during the period of the Catholic kings. It also goes back to the principal icons of Inca culture, the sun, the moon, the serpents or amaru, supporting the mascapaicha or crown of the Lord of Tahuantinsuyo. The motto of the shield, con la espada y con la pluma, with sword and the pen, sends us to a celebrated poem by the most brilliant author of the Spanish Renaissance, Garcilaso de la Vega, the Inca's namesake and also his great-great-uncle. We don't know who designed the coat of arms, but as we open royal commentaries, it serves as a reminder of where the author comes from. Garcilaso is acutely aware of being a different person, of being marked by his heritage, and also sensitive to the perils and prejudices that such mixed blood carries in a society marked by its concerns with limpieza de sangre, as this quote exemplifies. Let us now turn for a moment to the sources of royal commentaries. I mentioned before Garcilaso's translations of the Dialogues of Love by the Sephardic author León Hebreo or Judah Abravanel, the most important text of Neoplatonism. Published in 1590, it was the first incursion of the Inca into the world of letters as he translated it into Spanish. He also read private and printed chronicles and a number of manuscripts that had not yet been published, particularly the work of two Jesuits, José de Acosta and Blas Valera. In his Historia Natural y Moral de las Indias, the former, José de Acosta, offers a modern look, modern for its times, of the flora and fauna and of the peoples of North and South America. The latter, Blas Varela, a mestizo like Garcilaso from Chachapoyas, is the author of a lost Historia Occidentalis written in Latin, whose manuscript Garcilaso received in very poor shape. He characterized it as the papeles rotos. Conscious of the complexities of the task at hand and wanting to offer the readers of different places and cultural backgrounds a unique history, Inca Garcilaso went beyond traditional sources. I hope this doesn't fall and we don't get electrocuted here with the PowerPoint and everything. But Inca Garcilaso went beyond traditional sources. He takes advantages of old Quechua tales as told to him in that language by a maternal uncle. Aware of the distinct groups that formed the Inca Empire, and how they recorded events in quipu or colored knots, he also requested information from his former classmates. In a modern stance, the narrator underscores the manner in which the Incas conserved knowledge of the past and equates it with the new technology imported from Europe, that is to say, alphabetic writing. At the same time, he brings to the fore the need to include different perspective, the native point of view in this case, in order to tell the history of Tahuantinsuyo, a republic, he sadly indicates, destroyed before it was known, destruida antes que conocida. And he goes on to equate the accomplishments of Tahuantinsuyo with the Roman Empire and to compare its capital and his birthplace, Cusco, with Rome. Cusco, that was another Rome to the Inca Empire. Cusco, que fue otra Roma en aquel imperio. The royal commentaries is marked, as Frank Graziano pointed out, by many textual tensions and by the ambiguity of its narrative voice. In this regard, one of the favorite devices of the author is comparing and contrasting the Incas are the perfect rulers. They did not conquer, but rather persuaded other ethnic groups to become part of the empire. The narrator takes pleasure in contrasting the goodness and gentility of Inca rule with the evils and cruelties of colonial government. Thus, in a so-called ethnographic chapter about the Virgins of the Sun, he offers an account of how those who broke the rules of the Akyawasi, or House of the Chosen Virgins, would be punished. But fear not, the law was never broken, because the subjects of the Incas obeyed the law and feared punishment. Surprisingly, from the remark about the cruel punishments meted out to those who dared to break the law of the Akyawasi, he goes on to highlight the obedience of Inca subjects. Thus, he leads his readers and listeners to contrast past and present and to ask, why have the obedient subjects of the Inca lord turned into an unruly population? The passage again brings to mind the carefully organized Inca Empire where laws were swiftly and equitably applied. The first copy of Comentarios Reales arrived in Lima in 1613. In the 17th century, the book was translated into other European languages, first into French, appearing in Paris in 1633, and then into English, appearing in London in 1688. Very poor translation. It has been shown that its 18th century Spanish edition circulated among the members of the Inca aristocracy in Peru, including the 1780 rebel leader Tupac Amaru. The various essays of Entre la espada y la pluma discuss in clear prose many facets of the topics I have outlined. As you read the articles, and I hope you will read them, and I hope you buy the book, and ponder the ideas presented by their authors, keep in mind the Peruvian mestizo who left Cusco and settled in Spain. From Montilla and Córdoba, he wrote convinced of the shared history of North and South America. And if you are not convinced, you can go to the Museo del Barrio. I think Mike Wallace is here. And this is propaganda for you, the curator of the show. You will see how that history was shared since way before we dreamed. And more significantly, Garcilaso wrote convinced about the links of North and South America and of its links to Spain. But he did also write convinced of the ties that bind all peoples, our shared humanity, because, as he said, no hay más que un mundo. There is not but one world. Thank you so much.